Thank you all for coming to SWATH 2025. This is the fifth of 5 sessions that we've had throughout the month of July. So for those who may not know, we started SWATH it started in a graduate class, actually. I told my students we're going to write a grant based on the publications that are coming out in 2013, that came out in 2013 by TSU professors and graduates, including Dr. Bernadette Pruitt, who's on the line. Myself, I had a book come out. Dr. Petrie had a book come out. One of our graduate students, Mako Fanil, had a book come out. And I thought, let's showcase the writing of people who been affiliated with or currently affiliated with Texas Southern University. So we started the first SWATH in 2014 with a grant from Summerlee Foundation. And we continued. We had a couple of years where we had a hiatus during COVID, but we started as a face-to-face gathering, and we would go to different campuses or different places in the city of Houston so we could kind of fold in Houston history, Texas history with various locations. And this year was the first year I attempted to do everything online, and I really have enjoyed that option because we've been able to invite people from as far away as California and as close as Houston without having the traveling costs involved. But the information has been just as rich. So we had someone who spoke on the first day about doing genealogy, a woman from California. We also had Dr. Tamiko Meeks to do a presentation on her study on enslaved girls. Dr. The professor who started blackpast.org, Dr. Quintard Taylor, he was with us as well. So we're really happy that today we have Evelyn Harris from the African American Library at the Gregory School, which has been integrally involved with SWATH in that we have often used that location as a place to gather. And as you know now, it's the African American Research Center. So it's gone through a couple of name changes. And we are really so grateful to have the repository there. So I'm going to just go through. Evelyn is going to talk to us about the holdings at the library. She's also going to take us through some hands-on exercises to help us know what's actually in the repository. And I also want to mention that I've been really grateful to have my students who are enrolled in one of my graduate courses involved in SWATH as well. So this is an extra sacrifice for them tonight because this is the last week of our 5-week class and they have a lot of work due. But yet they are here. So I want to thank you, Evelyn Davis, for coming. I think I said Harris, but Evelyn Davis, I want to thank you for coming and sharing with us. And I'm going to yield the floor to you. You can just share. It's a meeting so that we can have ultimate participation, maximal participation. I just would like to only ask that everyone keep your microphones on mute so that we won't have any interruptions and Evelyn can move forward with her presentation. So welcome. Thank you for coming, and we look forward to sharing in the Q&A and also in the participation session. Thanks.
Good evening, everyone. How's everyone doing? Yes, please let me know in the comment section, where are you from? Since this is a virtual presentation, let's see if we have some people from out of Texas, possibly. And okay, Baltimore. That's pretty cool. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. Can everyone see my screen? Can everyone see the presentation? Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Oh, okay, I'm gonna hop back over to. Okay, so this presentation is called Our History, Your Hands, Community Archiving with Library Resources. So this presentation will cover a brief overview of the resources at the African American History Research Center, the donation process, and the role that archivists play at an archive. The second half of the presentation discusses how to create your own collection using preservation practices instructed by a certified archivist. Lastly, the presentation will conclude with a hands-on tutorial on how to use our website, houstonpubliclibrary.org, which I will share later on, and it will go over the library catalog, the digital archive repository, and additional resources for participants to use for research. So, who am I? So, hello, my name is Evelyn Davis. I am the new lead archivist and assistant manager, and I have over 5 years' experience working in archives. And currently, I oversee archival processing projects and digital projects as well. Also, I handle the acquisition of new donations, and I help with building community partnerships. At HHRC, which is the acronym that we use for our repository, is that we are a team of 9 people. It's quite small, but we do as much as we can, and we're dedicated to preserving the history and creating access to historical resources on the Black experience and culture in Houston. Briefly, I would like to mention my interest in archival studies, which started out in me taking a class in library school called Archival Practice and Theory. And it's kind of funny because I wasn't actually looking to go into archives. I was just looking to see what electives I could take. And that class kind of like stood out to me in like learning about preservation. And so I took that class and I instantly like remembered how I do actually have like a love for history because my background is originally in writing. So it's like I like writing history. They kind of go hand in hand, they're like cousins. And so with my love for history, I taking this class, I was like, okay, I get to learn. I could do both learning preservation and history. And then I spoke to the advisor at the time over the program at Louisiana State University, where they had a certification in archival studies. And he began to tell me about how the program and the certification goes hand in hand and how I could take certain classes to gain more knowledge on how to preserve collections and artifacts. And so that's initially what I took all my electives in. Like it went from just being curious about one thing to taking a total of like 5 classes. And so here I am today. Now, I would say I graduated in 2021. So here I am 4 years later, now working in archives, overseeing projects, and moving on up into management. So, this presentation overview and objectives. So the participants will learn how to access and use the resources at an archive. We'll go over finding aids, special collections, and research support. Additionally, the participants can learn basic knowledge about organizing, storing, and describing materials, digital and physical, to start creating their own personal archive at home. And I do want to go over the donation process because I feel like that's something that isn't spoke about enough if participants are interested in donating and how it's important to learn about your rights as a donor. And then we'll go into the live tutorial on how to use the website and our digital archive. So we will start with a historical overview of the Gregory School and how the library was created. So initially, the school was it was like the building that it sits now on Victor and Cleveland Street. That's initially where the school is located, on those two streets. It opened in 1926 and it closed down in the mid 1980s, and so it was left abandoned for a while until the mayor Lee Brown in 2002 he decided to turn the school into a library and joined the Houston Public Library System. So since we are a part of HPL, I do want to go over how since we're a part of HPL, that they do offer 44 different library systems, including 6 regional libraries. Their flagship is the Central Library that is located downtown, that is across the street from I would say, our sister institution, which is the Houston History Research Center. And that houses mostly all of the original collections that were once now at whereas at my institution, HHRC, it used to be over there at it's the Julia Idison building, is what they call it as well. And we also in the HPL system have 4 tech links. And tech links are services if you are interested in doing, like, if you want to create a YouTube channel, you want to like play an instrument, you want to learn how to crochet, embroidery. We offer all those sort of classes on our website as well. And so together we provide equitable access to resources, technology, and lifelong learning for all Houstonians. So at HHRC, our mission is to collect, preserve, and make available to researchers the the primary sources that we have on African American history in Houston and the surrounding area. Now, we do have some collections that are outside of the Houston area, but not too much, because most of our collections, like I said before, came from the Houston History Research Center. And so we mostly collect what is within, since we are located within Fulford, or sometimes people call it Freemanstown, we have a lot of documentation about the actual town that the school resides in now. And so we do collect personal and family histories from a lot of the citizens, and we there's at least like a couple churches in the neighborhood as well, and they donate their items to our repository. And we also collect oral histories as well. We are well known for interviewing citizens in the community and gathering their stories of them living within 4 or living within Houston. And I'll go over that in the live tutorial as well for anyone interested in listening to the interviews. So, a bit of history of the Gregory School. So, the beginnings of the history of Blacks in Houston started in 1865. After the news of freedom was delivered at Galveston, a group of former enslaved people migrated from different areas in Texas to the Houston area. And they settled in an area outside of the city limits of Houston, which today is called downtown Houston. And this area that would be known as Freemanstown or Houston's Fulford, because some people don't know that Houston used to run on a ward system, and they originally had 4 and then added 2 more before they broke up into districts. And so the area that the school is currently sitting in is considered the city's oldest established African American community, and it is considered a historic district. Now, the original Gregory School was located downtown on Louisiana Street, and it opened in 1870 for children of formerly enslaved in the Houston area. And then, unfortunately, it did burn down, and they ended up moving it to Wilson and Cleveland. There used to be the second building, and that building unfortunately had an accident as well. And then they eventually was able to gather enough money to build a brick and mortar school, which is the school that's the building that's there today that we operate as a library and archive out of. And the building was actually named after the Union officer and assistant commissioner of the Freedmen's Bureau, Edgar M. Gregory. So Freemantown was the center of Black community. It grew rapidly in the late 1800s. As a self-sustaining community, several churches were established, including Antioch Baptist Church. Before Gregory was built, the students attended school at the churches and then the Freeman Bureau schools. By 1876, the former institute became a part of the Houston public school system, marking Gregory School as the first public education institution for Black children in Houston. The residents established thriving buildings over 400 by 1915, which led to the growth of the neighborhood and flourished in the early 20th century. The late 19th and early 20th centuries were a period of community building, and the fourth ward became a home to many invaluable institutions, including Trinity Methodist Episcopal, located on Travis and Bell, and Acna, that's it, Antioch. Sorry, it's a little bit something sometimes. Antioch Baptist Church, which was started in 1866 by missionary William Crane. Okay. So it was during the late 1920s and early 1930s that 4-4 began to lose its permanence and its citizens moved to Third Ward, which began to attract more Black institutions like Yates High School, the Houston Negro Hospital, which is now Riverside General, and the Houston Colored Junior College, which is now the Texas Southern University. Geographic restraints made it difficult for 4-4 to expand as the community began to focus more on the residents as located to new housing developments in the fifth and third wards. During the 1930s, the ward faced other problems as institutions and downtown businesses expanded into 4-4, and new laws went into effect in 1937. If exacerbated the problem. Within a year of that time, most of the houses in Freemantown disappeared, which is mostly known as the row houses. So, so around that time, around 1940s, is when the gentrification process started. And so, like I said, the building was built in 1926 and the school operated until 1984. And then when Mayor Lee Brown in 2002 came up with the idea of preserving the school to turning it into a library, it opened in 2009. And it was originally called the African American Library at the Gregory School, located at 1300 Victor Street. And so what you see on the left hand side of the screen is really the new front of the building, because they actually did do some modification where like this glass wall was not originally attached to the building, and this is actually the back of the school. This is actually on Cleveland Street. But that most people still to this day call it the Gregory School, even though now we have changed names and they call it the Gregory Campus instead of the Gregory School. But for purposes of the presentation, I just wanted to show the participants what it looks like when you first come there. If you decide to come visit us, this is what the front of the library will look like and the parking lot. And the sign still has the original name as well. We're waiting to get that changed currently. Okay, so when you enter into the building, you'll be greeted by someone at the welcome desk, and then you'll be given a pamphlet that has notes for a self guided tour. And so I'll briefly go through what you might expect when you come to visit us at the Gregory School. So we have a restored classroom. So that's pretty much where we try to guide guests to start in a historic classroom to see what it originally looked like back when it was operating as a school in the 1920s. And that's what it looks like in the upper right hand corner. And when you go through the restored classroom, you end up in, well, what we call is the gallery. So we have three galleries, and the one that you go through after you exit the restored classroom is exclusively about Freemanstown. Now, that gallery actually has a timeline of when the town was created, like all along the walls, and it like walks you through when the town was created, when they built the school, and like different like monuments and achievements by the individuals within the community. And it's a pretty cool like exhibit, and that's why I really dub the museum space that we have, because you're not allowed to take pictures, not allowed to eat or anything. You just walk through, and the notes that we give you will help guide you to understand what's in each gallery. And this is more images for the purposes of the presentation of what the galleries will look like. And so the galleries mostly showcase institutions, churches, schools, and entertainment venues and entertainers, as well as performing arts that were mostly located within the 4-4 community and in downtown. And so after you exit the three galleries, we do have a temporary art space. And so that changes out every couple of months. And so currently we do have an exhibit going on called Black Stereo by Tyranny Mahoney. And it's an exhibit that tells the stories and the connections to African American artists and institutions of the greater Houston area. The works are presented that takes forms of concert posters, show bills, and album covers. And it's meant to educate and to highlight musicians during the early 1900s. And so I wanted to take some time to also highlight about our oral histories again. So our oral histories are one of our most popular primary sources that most applicants ask for. And it really, like, we collect the historical narratives of citizens in full for, especially anyone who was an alumni of the Gregory School. And you can actually find this information about the oral histories within the Houston Public Library's AV archives, digital archives. And so their mission is to provide broad access to the Houston Public Library's visual materials through online presentation and searchable metadata, preserve archival resources by providing a digital means of accessing content, and promote the discovery and use of unique special collections. Digital preservation makes it possible to catalog, search, and browse valuable archival collections in a new and innovative way while saving the original materials from wear and deterioration. And so at the African American History Research Center, we are a community based archive. And the main feature that separates us from the academic or government archive is that our collecting scope focuses on items that tell stories about the community we reside in. We still love to accept traditional records such as birth certificates, contracts, and letters, but we have the freedom to retrieve other materials with historic information such as scrapbooks, funeral programs, newspaper clippings, and even oral histories. It is so important to have diverse selection of records because each item helps tell a part of the history of the Black community in Houston and in Texas. The main categories we have are individual collections, family collections, and organization collections. With this in mind, we can't only accept materials from or about famous Houstonians like Michael Lee Leland or Barbara Jordan. The bulk of our success comes from having a variety of from a variety of materials from all walks of life, and the image is actually what it looks like in the closed stack area of some donations and collections that we have that we're currently processing. Okay. So let's move to the resources available at the Gregory School. So the African American History Research page online provides data resources, and I did include the link on the slides, which I will share the slides at the end of the presentation for anyone that wants to be able to actually access the links. If whenever we go through the tutorial it might be too quick, it's like you can go back through the slides and see the links to everything. And so the little snapshot that I included in the presentation is what it looks like on the web page, and it has a section for history resources, which has our finding aids, print collections, databases, and in the second half is of our journals and periodicals, which are handpicked from our collection development librarians on just exclusively African American history research. Okay. So our library collection contains materials related to a range of topics in African American studies as they relate to Houston and the state of Texas. The collection provides access to resources in many formats, databases, microfilm, which we do have microfilm machines for researchers to use, and we mostly have newspapers on microfilm, and then we have books and journals. And so our reference collection mainly focuses on local Black history, the African American experience in America, and sources that support the archival collection, all of which can be searched from the Houston Public Library's main website. And you can always be sure to specify our location, which is the African American History Research Center, in your search criteria. And then because sometimes we don't have all the information available for patrons, we have a collection called the vertical files, and so those are print resources on a variety of local and regional topics. This is kind of like ready reference files, and it's mostly collections of like clippings of newspapers and journals and magazines that relate to the history of African Americans in Houston and in Texas. Okay, so currently at the African American History Research Center, we have about 500 collections dated from the late 19th century to the present. Our collections are mostly on individuals, families, social organizations. The collections are more local and regional in scope with a variety of formats, which include family letters, oral histories, diaries, account books, photographs, and ledgers. Our collection also contains yearbooks from historically African American schools in Houston. So that includes Booker T. Washington, Texas Southern University. We do have a couple from Prairie View A&M University as well, but we mostly get phone calls about the ones, the high school yearbooks. And initially, when we do process those items, they do go into a finding aid. So finding aids are for process collections that can be searched on through our online database, which is a detailed description of what the collection includes of what was donated. So our digital resources. So we do have a digital archive and an audio and video archive. So many of our photographs and some of our manuscript collections can be viewed online at the HPL Digital Archive. Especially this is where the oral histories are located as well. So I'm going to go a bit into the family history resources. So genealogy and family history collections are mostly published and unpublished and sometimes self-published items. You can locate these items in the catalog as they are housed in the closed stack area of our repository. And most of these items are self-published. So it's quite small, but it's a growing resource to if you wanted to gain a bit more information about the Houston area. Like we have on here, we have the Dr. Charles Edward Tatum, one of his books. We even have a book about another family, the Diaspora of the Prevely family of the Southern Grimes County. So it expands to different areas of what you might be looking for when it comes to genealogy research. But also, we do have a sister institution called the Family History Research Center, which is located in the Museum District. And so they offer a wide range of resources for anyone who is actually doing genealogy research that can help you get started over there. And so, really getting to the bread and butter of what we do at HHRC, we collect funeral programs. So currently, we have over 1,600 programs digitized in the system, and we have even more ready to go. And we utilize the funeral program collections to really help individuals who might be doing genealogy, and it could like connect to if you had a family member attend a church and they end up having their funeral at that church and they print the program, and usually funeral programs they have the information on the family, and people like donate it to our repository and we take the time to digitize them. So sometimes if you're looking up a certain individual who might have attended a church in 4-4, we might have their funeral program digitized already. And so funeral programs offer a wealth of historical information about the lives of the deceased. Most of the time they do also include like education and organization affiliation, past residencies, etc. And we actually do have a program coming up where, if you want to learn a bit more about how funeral programs can be connected to genealogy, we have an in person program coming up in October, which is a part of our fall research series, which is on the Houston Public Library's website. They have a calendar for current events. And if you look up the location of HHRC, you could see all of our programs we have starting in September. We have about how to conduct research, and we have another program about how to know the difference between primary and secondary resources. Okay, so I'm gonna go over a few of our family collections that we do have. So, um, this slide is about the Stafford Harrison collection. He was a civic leader, minister, and was the first Black precinct judge and poll tax writer in Harris County. He graduated from Yates High School and Prairie View A&M University. He lettered in track and tennis and was voted All-American in football in 1933. He subsequently played semi-professional football in San Quinn, Puerto Rico. He received his master's degree from Texas Southern University. From 1936 to 1941, he was a labor organizer for the CIO and an officer for its local division at Hughes Tool Company, which we also have acquired their collection as well. And he founded the Houston Colored Coaches and Officials Association in 1936 and served as its president. He also was the leader of the Third Ward Civic Club and an active member of the Harris County Democratic Party. And so his collection is manuscript 1330. And so the Harrison family collection was the materials relates back to Edwin Harrison. It contains personal materials, including biographical materials, vital records, education records, political materials, and materials documenting his time as a Scout executive of the Sam Houston Area Council and a minister at United Methodist Church. Materials are largely textual based, which means mostly documents, including letters, clippings, publications, church sermons, and other related printed materials. A considerable portion of his collection also contains photographs of local Boy Scout, but Boy Scout activities and various Harrison family members. Among other formats in the collection are membership cards and a scrapbook of Boy Scout activities. So the next family I will talk about is the Davis family of Houston, Texas, including John Davis Jr., a prominent dentist, civic leader, former president of the Charles A. George Dental Society, and former board trustee at Texas State University for Negroes and Wesley African Methodist Episcopal Church. His wife, Martha Sidney Davis, who attended Booker T. Washington High School and and Bishop Collection and taught at Douglas Elementary, and later worked in the Hartman Collection at Texas Southern University. John and Martha were married in 1936, and they have a daughter named Ruth Davis. And after the death of Dr. John Davis, Martha remarried Judson Robinson Sr., a real estate and community power broker in 1963. The Dr. John Davis Jr. and Mrs. Martha Sneed Davis family collection consists of professional and some family papers of John Davis Jr. and Martha Sneed Davis from 1940 to 2003. The collection contains newspaper clippings, event programs, a funeral program, publications, reports, meeting minutes, video recordings of old colored high school alumni, correspondence, photographs, certificates of family history, which is a publication that they self publish, articles about Human Sweet, and two scrapbooks. Letters documenting most of the letters in the collection document community efforts of a building fund for the Houston College for Negroes and the NAACP Sweet Victory Fund to finance Human Sweet's education at University of Texas. Okay, and I want to take this time to have a 10-minute break. And so you can take this time to step away from the computer, or if you started down thinking about questions, you can jot them down for during the Q&A part. But since it's 7:39, we can reconvene at 7:49.
Okay, I just wanted to mention that some people have put some questions in the
Okay.
chat, so you can think about them, and we can break for 10 minutes, and I'll put my timer on.
Okay.
Thank you. You can continue.
Okay. Welcome back, everyone, from your break. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. Thank you for everyone who did do the thumbs up. Let's go back to the presentation. Okay, so I'm going to briefly go over the donation process here at the African American History Research Center. And so our archives are filled with various records, photographs, and even occasional artifacts, which is one of our major ways that we document the history around us. With these collections, items that showcase the mundane are just as important as the records that show the ordinary. Whether you've gotten your hands on a collection in person or seen an example or two in a program, I would hope at this point you've been inspired to start your own archival collection. But some of you might still be hesitant to start, maybe not sure where to start. when it comes to looking at the records that you have currently within your home or in your office. Perhaps you worried about missing pieces or items that may have damaged over time. We'll go over these concerns and show you examples of different types of archival collections that you can create. And who knows, your collection might end up on our shelves for researchers to come by and conduct research. And so the first step to creating your own collection is to ask, why would you even want to start one? On a personal level, having your own records archive can help you track down your own activities, such as education and employment, or major events like marriages and achievements. And really, one of the easiest ways I tell people is that technically everyone's an archivist. You all archive. Like everyone has a smartphone. You have pictures. That is a digital collection. You haven't deleted anything. You have pictures of your family, your kids, your grandchildren. You are an archivist already, and you even showcase them to people like an exhibit. Because like I've gotten those like random conversations with people and they want to show me the pictures in their phone. And I'm like, that's almost like an exhibit. And you have a collection on your phone. And we take digital collections like that as well. Or offer, if you have a photo album, to scan the images and give them right back to you if you're not comfortable with us being the repository that you trust to hold your items. You can keep them at home and then you'll have the digital. You can also ask for a digital copy. I just remembered that because we've had some recent donations where the donor asks if they can get a digital copy of the items that they donated, and we do offer that option to people. And so when it comes to like traditional archive collections, like the historical ones, like if it's about a college, an institution, or a government entity, like they collect those type of like letters and well, it's mostly letters. Not many pictures are in those type of traditional archives, but in the community archive, we accept pretty much anything, whether it be physical, artifact, or digital. As long as you sit down and have a consultation with us and let us know what you're willing to give to the institution or the repository, we'll be open to hearing what you may have that you're ready to give to an archive. So, archives versus libraries. And this is something that I also had to learn when I was in library school. Because most people, when they think of a library, you think of, oh, you can walk in and see like aisles and aisles of books. But an archive is a little bit different, which is on the left hand side of the screen. This is what we consider a closed stack area. And this is initially what I see every day. Walk in and see these closed stacks of these are movable shelves that we use now. And some places do call them compact shelving. And so the one in the picture is actually an electronic one. So really you just push the button and you can move it left or right and it'll move by itself and you can go down the aisle and look at the collections and or books. And so whether you've gotten your hands on a collection in person or seen some like I would say the galleries as well, because the galleries do have some artifacts in them, or just examples of really what that we house in the closed stack area. That's that we try to preserve within the correct temperature, less humidity, and less lighting. Usually, it is an ice box inside of the closed stack area and it is not open to the public. So when you do come in with a research appointment and you ask to look at certain collections, we pull them in advance so that we won't have to worry about waiting. Now we do take walk-ins, but it'll take some time to locate the items that you're looking for because oftentimes in most archives, depending on which one you go to, luckily, at HHRC, we have just one floor of collections. But when you go to sometimes an institution, they'll have multiple floors. So it's always good to book an appointment in advance. Most archives appreciate it, but we do accept walk ins, as I just said. So when it comes to the donation process, you can call the repository. We mostly get calls about people inquiring about what they have, and we immediately tell them, hey, set up an appointment or send an email to the manager at HHRC. And at that appointment, you bring your materials and we go over what you have. And then we also go over the donation form, or gift form is sometimes what it's called, depending on the institution that you go to. And it's important to learn about the donation process, because when it comes to this form, it explains your rights as a donor, what you are willing to give up, and what access and restrictions you want to place on your collection. Now, and this is actually a good example to use. Today, I found out about a collection that one of my processing archivists is working on. She let me know that the collection has some restrictions on it that the donor put in place for at least a year. And the reason she did this is because something that she was donating involved a program that had yet been created. Back in 2022 is when she donated the collection, and she put restrictions on it for a year before anyone could look at it, because she was working on this program of a poetry uh it was a poetry public programming she was putting on for in remembrance of Lauren Anderson. And I was like, okay, cool. So now it's 2025. We can lift those restrictions and process a collection and let people look at the program since it has already passed. And so, as a donor, you do have that right to allow us to be like, to tell us that, hey, I'm willing to donate this, but I also want to place certain restrictions on it, and that's perfectly fine. It is your items. Or if you want to wait and give us partially the collection, and then like if you have more stuff that you just haven't gathered yet, you can let us know about that as well. Because we do have some donors that repeat donations. Like sometimes it's actually monthly. Because since I handle the donations, I've seen some of the same names donating, and so it is important to read over the donation form and ask as many questions as possible. Because without signing that donation form and you give us your items, we can't process them. You really can't be made public. It'll become a legal issue. And so, for the purposes of the institution and yourself, please do not give something without signing a donation form. It'll work out for both parties. And so, um, you won't end up having to hear from us constantly about, hey, we have your items, but we can't process them without you signing the donation form. And if you need to like have another meeting about it, let us know. Like we don't mind speaking to potential donors. We're actually happy you want to donate. But I just wanted to put like emphasis on it, and especially in this presentation, if anyone's interested in donating, learn about the donation and your rights, and making sure you able to sign it when you're comfortable, and then we can be able to begin processing it and making it public, putting it on the Houston Public Library website, and then researchers can find it. And so here are some examples of some donations. And it's a pretty massive scrapbook. So it's inside of a custom acrylic cover, and the items are either taped or glued directly on the paper. Now, one thing I can say about handling scrapbooks personally, it is such a cool arts and craft project in the beginning. Trust me, I've done a couple scrapbooks myself, but then getting into archives, I've come to realize scrapbooks, everything's glued or taped, and it is almost more damaging to remove it from the paper than it is to try to like take it off and put it in folders or put it in protective sleeves if it's pictures. So oftentimes the practice that we do use is just keeping them in place, and we create customized boxes for scrapbooks. But I just wanted to show a couple examples of some donations that we do have of what we get, and that we would love to accept something like this, because scrapbooking was very popular for a very long time, and a lot of the collections we do have, like I would say before the early 2000s, are scrapbooks. And more like I didn't realize how many people put documents in their scrapbooks. Most scrapbooks You figure it would be pictures, but just like in the image, it can also be letters that they taped or glued to the page, which is totally fine. It's sometimes it's preserved this way, and depending on when they create the scrapbook, you see how one of the letters is a bit discolored, like crumbled up. They probably added it to the scrapbook later on. So it like having it in that book per se did preserve it for a time, but it's like if you don't put all the items in, you'll have examples like this where it's like one of them kind of stands out from all the rest. But that's perfectly fine. It still was, preserved at some point. And this is perfectly acceptable when it comes to creating your own collection. And so this is another example of a scrapbook of mostly photographs and an advertisement and a certificate as well. And it's actually inside of an archival box currently. And on the next slide, I'm going to show you some more archival boxes that we use at the institution. So initially, after your items are donated to HHRC, I mean, AAHRC, these are archival safe approved boxes. There's a few companies that do sell them. The names are a little funny. Like the most popular one is Gaylord Archival Supplies. Another one is Hollister Edge. They offer these acid free materials that like I have which I've seen actually happen in an archive where we had a water leak and it came onto the collections and the box was damaged but the materials wasn't. So even though these boxes can be a bit pricey to purchase at times, it do come in handy when unfortunate natural disasters happen within like the building. And so, really, when your materials are transferred to these boxes, they're pretty much in good hands. The box does what it was created to do. And some of the newer ones have like this gloss on them that's supposed to protect them from fire as well. And so, some of the dangers of delayed preservation is some of the documents becoming discolored or tears and holes in them, or you might end up losing some items, which can be unintentional, especially if you move or whether you move houses or move items. But really, just collecting as much as you can to create a collection is really what the initial point of these creating your own collection for this presentation. And so some common causes and consequences really is improper storage or handling. Because sometimes I've seen like pictures and also letters be folded up, and it's unintentional. Sometimes people just fold things, or they put it in their pocket, or they might put it in like another container. But it's like it's actually like disfiguring what the image or the letter used to be, and it creates these lines in them. And like we do have experts that do conservation work that will actually restore the image or the letter back to originally what it used to be. Like in the images in the screen, you can see the cracks in the images in the picture, the portrait of the woman, portrait of Leah Minor. And it just it helps us on the on our side to, if you donate items that are not crumbling, or it was like it was unintentional, it just so happened, or if you have it actually hanging up in your home next to a window. Unintentional, is something you want to look at. Most people have pictures on their walls, but if it's sitting there for over over some time, depending on like where you live, in Texas is probably a good example of the heat. The picture will actually start to discolor and become crumbled underneath the sunlight. So it's unintentional, but it can happen. And so it's like if you're looking to preserve and also think about mold growth if it's next to a window, natural disasters of not only sunlight but rain. to think about those things, because over time it you may not think about it in the moment, but then it's like it shows up later on, and then when you donate it to an archive, we'll see it. And so just try to avoid these types of complications. And so another dangers of delay. So one of the primary examples I want to also show is the Houston Forward Times. So it's a very popular newspaper. We actually went through a 10-year process to actually um, like convince the publishing company for the Houston Forward Times to donate their entire bound volumes going back as the 1960s up into around 2012. And because the room that the bound volumes were sitting in, it actually became very fragile, very sensitive to touch, because they were digitized, but rehousing them just also reaffirmed the fact that like they're very fragile to touch, and we had to be extra careful placing them in boxes and into our oversized area to make sure that they do not suffer any more damage. But seeing like the crumbling paper and even like the broken spine, like this is like these unfortunately what happened when there's a delay in donating, and we're trying to avoid moving forward. And so now coming back to creating your own collection, let's think about the records you create or use in your day-to-day life. These include birth certificates, financial records such as invoices, letters written by you or received, contracts for any job, event planning. And some of these examples may seem like sensitive information in which we do place restrictions on them. I would say we don't allow researchers to look at really personal items. It'll be mostly the letters and pictures, or if you have like manuscripts that you've written, unpublished manuscripts, we'll let researchers look at those items, not necessarily the more personal ones. But it is donated, and that's perfectly fine. It's okay. It's just we'll have to place certain restrictions on them. And so, getting ready to create your own collection, now that you have everything in front of you when it comes to like looking at the items you have and whatnot, you taking a survey, the inventory of your items, I would definitely advise to please date your pictures, because oftentimes when we do get donations of pictures, there's no dates, names, events. And this is something you don't really have to do on the item themselves. You can do your own inventory, and when you're donated, you can have that information available for us to help us digitize and identify certain people in the pictures. And so now I want you to put yourself in the position of a family member or a researcher looking at your collections 10, 50, even 100 years in the future. Think about what they might be looking for as far as people, events, even specific items like letters and photographs. What might be boring or unimportant will actually be like a treasure trove of information, especially if it's something self-published. That really means that it is rare and it was documented by that creator, and it could be something that could be the missing piece to your research. So never think about something that might be unimportant when really it could be important to someone else, because we're really trying to preserve lost stories and making sure nothing else falls through the cracks. And so now that you've taken a look at everything today, and so just want to ask, like, are you ready to potentially donate? You keep it in your minds. Keep putting questions in the chat. I did take a look earlier, but I'm gonna go ahead and get started on the live tutorial since we have about, I would say, roughly 10 minutes left. So I'm gonna exit out of the screen and go to Chrome. Can everyone see my Chrome?
Mhm. You have about 15 minutes left.
Okay. Okay. Can everyone see the Houston Public Library website?
Yes, we use it.
Okay. So this is the landing page for the Houston Public Library, which is houstonlibrary.org/home. I'm gonna go ahead and put that in the chat as well if anyone that wants to follow along. And so initially, when you come to the landing page, it has a series of different options at the top where it has like browse and borrow, where that's if you want to look at the books like the catalog and the interlibrary loan. We have events, which is the calendar I mentioned earlier about the events that we're doing. And you can actually select them by the locations. And so for us is AAHRC. And like I said, we have the fall research series that you can actually start registering for in early September. And then if you go over a little bit to research, we're located under the History Research Centers. And so you would click on the African American history. And this is what our homepage looks like. We have an image from our digital repository. And if you scroll down a bit, we have our services. So we are located at 1300 Victor Street, look in Fulford, or as some people call it, they still call it Freemanstown, or as it's now actually been renamed to Midtown. As we are located, our hours we every like there's 2 days out the week where we start opening at 12, and we have one late night which is we say open from 12 to 7 on Thursdays. We are have an HPO library card, you can reserve our meeting room that holds up to 12 people. And if you absolutely free, you can schedule a tour up to 50 people. And it,
Evelyn,
yes.
excuse me. Can you answer some of the questions that are in the chat? One just
Um,
came up about they were wondering whether you had any collections by Catholics, that you know of in the archive.
we can actually search for this particular answer
Mm-hmm.
in the tutorial.
Oh, okay.
So African American Catholics in Houston.
One of my students years ago wrote a paper on Black Catholics in Houston. He was a senior, and the paper actually won an award. And I'll try to see if I can find his paper and see where he looked. But he was definitely studying Black Catholics in Houston. This is about 10 years ago, though. I'll see, but she can check also in their archive to see if
Okay.
they have anything. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you go back to the research tab and go under digital archives, it'll take you to our digital archive repository. And if you scroll down a bit, we do have some options of looking at just the archival collections or architect collections, photograph collections, and then we do have an advanced search. So I'm gonna go ahead and click on archival collections. And so this brings you to our version of the library catalog, which it will mostly just search the items that have been digitized in all of the history research centers. So I'm gonna go ahead and go to search terms, and we're looking up the African American Catholic.
Oh, MICS.
No.
Also, the person who asked about Black Catholics, just in general, you may also look in the index for Tawana Steptoe's book. What was the title of that? Houston Bound, and see which repositories she looked at to study Frenchtown. That's another way to see where she may have gotten some of her information. Yeah, Houston Bound. Hmm. Look at her bibliography and her index. That's another way to get at resources. Bernadette, did you cover any Catholics in your book? Black Catholics? And I just don't recall.
Oh, sure. Yes, yes. So as I'm indicating, looking at vertical files, looking at some of the music oral history collections like Illinois Jacquette's oral history collection. He was raised as a Catholic, so he is going to highlight the Catholic Church in great detail. But also, if you go to the Catholic Archive and
Yes.
Diocese, which is on San
Yes.
Jacinto, it will have a good deal of materials, baptism records, marriage records, and even Catholic newspapers. There is a weekly newspaper that is still published, yearbooks, which highlighted the 125th anniversary of the archive, excuse me, of the diocese. So the diocese archive will hold a lot of materials, but there is certainly a lot of materials here. Yeah.
Mhm. Thank you. There was another question that you had earlier, Bernadette. You were asking about scholars and what they could donate
It's,
earlier. You
um,
Oh, well, here it is. She said, I've heard that archivists
Mhm.
cannot and do not accept
oh,
everything given to the archives as a gift. Is this true for the Gregory Research Center or HPL? Do you know?
So at the African American History Research Center, we do have a collection development policy that kind of outlines what we do accept
Mhm.
based on, since we are predominantly serving the African American community and preserving their history and culture. And so that policy I believe it's available online. If not, we do have a copy that you can
Mhm.
view as well when you
Okay,
come do your consultation.
great. I was trying to see if there were other questions. I think that's it. So you can continue. I just wanted to make sure we got those questions answered. Okay. So you can proceed, Evelyn.
Okay.
Mhm.
Let's go back. So going back to the digital archives page that we have for the history research centers. If you scroll down a bit, so we do currently have 4 history research centers within HPL. You have the African American history, the family history, and the new one that we have is the Hispanic history. And so they are located in the same place as the Houston history, which is in the Julie Idison building downtown. And clicking on these will bring you to their individual pages as well. And each history center has their own picture, and if you scroll down, they'll have a little bit about what they collect. Like the History Research Center, they have digital books, they have the census records and certificates, and they have their own vertical files as well. And if we go back and scroll down a bit more, on the page. You can also browse by format. So, as I mentioned earlier, the oral histories is actually located in audio and video. Then the digital images are located in images. There are some maps available online. The Houston Forward Times repository is located in newspapers, and we do have city directories scanned online, and then certain scrapbooks are also available digitally. And so we do have some collections featured on the website. And if you click on more details, it'll just bring you to its own page. Like this is about the Texas Medical Center, and it'll showcase there are collections centered around this particular institution at 3 different history research centers.
Mhm.
And so we have like these old images of what certain hospitals were located here in Houston available online.
Well, and
And
it's
they'll probably
mhm.
yes, ma'am.
I was just going to say it's really remarkable all that we have access to now. Those of us who do
Mhm.
African American, Hispanic history. I wanted to mention too that Dr. Jesse Esparza, who's here, I think you were a scholar, a scholar in residence at the research center.
I
Is
was. I forget the year that was, but I was doing research there, looking at newspapers, and you mentioned yearbooks. I looked at yearbooks and I scoured almost all the yearbooks that were there to document the history of Booker T. Washington High School
yeah.
and the communities that birthed it, and then the communities that sustained it over its 100-year history. So yeah.
I was about to ask if if you used it to write the Booker T. Washington chapter I read.
That's correct. That's correct. It
Wow,
came out
awesome.
in an anthology on critical race theory. I was one of the chapters that was selected for that edited volume.
Right. And I have a chapter that's coming out in October that I use the funeral programs to help me flesh out. So it's amazing to me all that's available now. Dr. Pruitt, Dr. Esparza, and myself, we can all attest to how grateful we are as historians that this kind of attention to the community
Mhm.
archive, how rich how much our research has been enriched by it.
Well, and then also, if I can just kind of echo that, I mean, so yes, right, that was an accurate statement, but I would say also that it's been my experience that every time that I needed to work with staff members at this facility back when it was the Gregory School. I mean, it was. I mean, it's like I was home. I mean, they treated me like, like I'm their brother and from another mother, right? And so, I mean, just
Mhm.
the royal treatment and the respect that you get from the
Yes.
staff at this facility is unmatched. And they really do sort of just put in the work to make sure you get your work done. And so kudos to them for doing that.
Evelyn, can you tell them how long you've been working for the library? She's fairly new to Houston, and she's come in like a champion and learned everything that's there. When did you start your new position?
I started back in March.
See, yeah. So she's gone through a very quick learning curve, giving us this really thorough and interesting, um, very useful presentation. Do you want to offer any closing remarks for us?
Oh yes. Let me actually switch the screen back because I believe my last screen was just about if anyone had any questions, comments.
I do see one about oral history. Well, I see several just at the end of the chat. There are a few. If you can take a look.
Oh, someone just shared a picture of one of the images that was like a
Refurbished.
little bit chipped and it's restored.
Oh.
Hmm.
Like
Hi,
I
I'm Deneen Henderson from Dallas. And so thank you for this workshop. I hope to attend many more. I do volunteer work with the African American Museum here in Dallas. We put on programming, and I'm also a librarian. And so AI, of course, is just bombarding us. And this is just a new feature. I
Wow.
used to spend an hour trying to, improve things with the Adobe products, and prior to that, Macromedia, and now ChatGPT. I just took a screenshot of the image that you had on the slide, and I just uploaded it and said, please repair this image. And that's what it did, just like that.
Wow.
It's crazy. But thank you.
Amazing. Amazing.
So I do see a question about the African American genealogy research at the Clayton Center. If they have ancestors who lived in 1850 to 1860 as enslaved peoples. So I've been to the Clayton campus twice, and most of their bookshelves are not actual fiction books. They have like directories and census records really categorized by states, and they do have a section for international as well.
Right.
So I would recommend you reaching out to the Clayton Center themselves and emailing the reference department your question, because they may be able to help you when
Right.
it
So
comes to that.
I'm familiar with
Mhm.
Clayton. I did several months of research there when I was working on my dissertation. I was just curious to know if it had better materials on African Americans going back to the 19th century because of the enslavement of our ancestors. Quite
Mhm.
often, there is a wall
Mhm.
that is there. So you're right, and really much of those materials are accessible online,
Yeah.
um, but still there is a huge need for more
Mhm.
materials on enslaved peoples. Yeah,
Yes.
it's just not a comparison. Yeah,
Mhm.
but thanks. Yeah.
Dr. Pruitt, can I just mention that some of my students who are actually online now, they are actually starting to transcribe the Texas slave trade papers, which are TSU's only primary source dating back to the period of slavery. So they're actually transcribing those papers,
Awesome.
part of
Woo!
their assignment.
Great.
So we will have at least that. And as I understand it, there are about 85 pages in the collection. And they've been doing some work on that now. And we're going to try to transcribe them within the next year or so.
Oh, wow. Excellent.
Mhm.
Okay.
Well, Evelyn, thank you very much for this thorough presentation. Again, it's just wonderful to know anybody who's doing Black history in Houston and has just this wonderful repository to access. I also appreciated your highlighting the role that Lee Brown played in the establishment of the library.
Mhm.
I knew a lot of details. I knew about Helena Stokes because years ago I worked with her when I was doing a community facing program on the Black family. But I didn't know that Lee Brown played a significant role in helping to establish the library. So thank you for
Mhm.
sharing that historical information and then just for giving us a broad overview of what all is there. It is really remarkable that the library has come this far. And
Mhm.
let's see, I did finished my dissertation in 1998. I would have loved to have been able to access all of those funeral programs and photographs, but Bernadette and Jesse and different ones of us, we had to create our own archives in many ways to get our research done. So those who are doing research now, they have no excuse. The material is there.
Mhm.
And the all you have to do is make sure you have those interpretive skills so you can get those papers done, those dissertations and master's theses and articles
Yes.
done.
Excuse me, Evelyn, I
Mm-hmm.
have one quick question. Can you
Okay.
speak to what percentage of archival collections are available through the finding aids, through the, what is it Taro, Texas Archival Resources
Mm-hmm.
Online?
Yeah,
Would you
tarot.
say
Yeah,
20%,
tarot.
30%? How many of these materials can we access in terms of the finding aids? And then how many materials are part of the digital archive that you have with the Houston Public Library and Gregory School Research Center?
Okay, so I did a quick search on the tarot website because you can search by repositories. And so for the African American History Research Center, currently we only have 36 available. Now we do need to update it. It is one of our priority goals to reach out to the committee to see about updating our collections. And another issue that we do have is some of the collections that came from the Houston uh, History Research Center, the collections are still underneath their repository, even though they've been moved to our repository. So it can be a bit confusing because then you'll see a finding aid that was created probably more than 30 years ago from the HHRC, but yet we have it here at the African American History Research Center. And we our most updated finding aids are actually on Archive Space. Have you used Archive Space, Dr. Pruitt? Yes.
Yes, I think so.
Mhm.
In fact, I think a student of mine tipped me on to archive space. Yeah.
So someone asked about future program offerings. SWATH happens every summer. It stands for Summer Workshop on African American Texas History. And so the themes for SWATH change from year to year. This year, we wanted to look, especially given the climate, we wanted to look at accessing African American history, which is why we called it Freedom at Your Fingertips, to help people realize just how much they can learn about themselves without necessarily if they don't have African American history on campus, well, how do you learn how to do it yourself? So that was how we set this up. But all the various repositories, like the African American History Research Center, if you visit their websites, they will probably have programs throughout the year. Like I did hear Evelyn mention programs that they're going to have in the fall. I wanted to
Mhm.
ask, do you have something that is going to focus on family history during Family History Month at the African American History Research Center in
Ooh, when?
October for family
Oh,
history? Are you Family History Month is October, and I was
really?
yeah.
Well,
So
that is so ironic and coincidental. Because one of the fall research series is actually on the funeral programs and connecting them to genealogy, and it's actually my program that I'll be doing in person.
wonderful, yeah.
Hmm.
So if you pitch it as come and let us teach you how to do family history, we'll
Yes, I
log
was
on
going
or
to
come
rely
in.
on the Clayton campus because they actually
Okay,
have some resources on how to get started with genealogy, and they have some handouts as well. So I was going to
right.
connect with them to
Okay,
collaborate on it.
yeah.
Hmm.
Well, however you guys choose to do it, there seems to be interest. But I do want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. For those who were able to attend all of the swaths, I know that some of my students have been on every Wednesday. We've had a dynamic slate of speakers, and I really do hope that as a result of what's been presented over throughout the month of July, that those who've attended realize that freedom really is at their fingertips.